What is up, everybody? This is another edition of Industry Update. I am with my co-host, as always, Guzzy. What's going on, Guzzy?
Hello.
And he is your host for the Hitbox. So if you haven't seen that, please be sure to check it out. I think another episode is either coming out or just came out. Is that right, Guz?
It's coming out next Thursday.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, there'll be another episode out there. It gives you plenty of time to catch up on, watch it, and just to kind of give a little update to what that is. Can you just give like a brief little ones and twos about what the hitbox is?
So it's a first-person shooter focused hitbox. I'm with Derp on it, and we've been talking a lot of CS:GO, but we recently, spoiler alert, next episode we kind of got away from CS:GO. We had a special guest, and it was interesting to see other takes on games that we thought could be huge if they had the right resources, and games that actually had a great concept and it was a different flow of things. But really, we've been focusing on CS:GO for the time being, just because that's our favorite FPS, and I've been trying to expand it with a little bit more Call of Duty, and with Call of Duty coming out tomorrow on the 24th, we'll be able to expand it into that a little bit more.
No, yeah, that'd be very cool. Yeah, so definitely some good info that came out, some cool information, and a nice new update coming up on the next episode. That'd be cool. But for those of you who are joining this podcast and not that one, this is Industry Update, and we just this is a podcast where we just talk about what's going on in the gaming industry from a more of a business perspective rather than just focusing on the games. And this week is a really good one. I think last week we did just more of a general concept idea kind of thing, just to kind of give everybody this talk about. This one's going to be a way more focused on our topic this week, and it's a very good topic. I think everybody's going to get a real good kick out of this, and it's definitely going to stir the pot a little bit, which would be great because we definitely want to hear what our community has to say. And that topic is, betting and gambling in esports, and it's something that needs to be addressed. I feel because it's not something that can hide for very long. What do you think, Gus?
So I think the fact that it took so long for sports betting to become legal, it's kind of a sign of the tides changing a little bit. I think esports, it's not here yet, but it will be here within a couple years. With the fact that a lot of esports venues are being built, and there's a lot of companies, sports teams included, investing in these esports organizations, that I think it's going to be something that is going to be absolutely relevant very shortly. I just think it's a little bit more intricate than sports betting.
Yeah. No, and it makes a lot of sense because, people definitely view, like sports betting a little more, I don't know, like the right word to say. It's more like traditional, so you don't really think of, point shaving or cheating or anything like that. Like you kind of, it's definitely a part of the game, I guess, to some, but you hold it in such high esteem that you don't think about it. Whereas when it comes to esports, everybody's trying to find that competitive edge, and it's just a part of the culture, and it's been like that since day one. So it hasn't been able to be like hidden behind anything. So when you think of like esports and betting, I think the first thing people think of is like, how can this get cheated? And I think maybe that's why it took so long for it to become such a part of the community. But it's also not like that sport and betting and esports haven't been around. Um, especially with CS:GO, which I know you talk about way more often than I do. I know absolutely nothing about it. Betting in CS:GO has been a long time coming, and it's actually pretty well a part of the culture as it is already. Is that, am I making sense here?
So that does make sense, and Valve, the creator of CS:GO, kind of saw this being an issue. It was amazing for the game. It got a lot of people playing the game. The economy for the skins on Steam and in just betting in general was huge. You saw a lot more people download the game and actually playing it. The downside of it was, aside from the kids taking their mother's credit cards and running up the bill, uh, the downside one is match fixing. So players were actually betting on themselves or against themselves and then purposely throwing. And you've seen a couple players permanently banned from CSGO tournaments, pro players, that is. And they're still banned. And this was 6-7 years ago.
Wow. So
The other,
kind of like a Pete Rose kind of thing,
right,
where
exactly.
yeah,
And then the other downside of it now is Valve saw it taking so much action and being such a prevalent thing that they didn't want people to play CS:GO just for skins. Now Valve makes an insane amount of money from skins just from opening cases and buying keys and whatnot. But the fact that they saw these 10, 11, 12-year-olds betting skins and having all these expensive skins and essentially spending a lot of money on a video game, at least there's some, humanity inside of Valve. They actually put in trade bans or trade stoppages so that way you trade an item, you can't trade it for 7 days. And with these gambling sites, it was okay, you can quickly put up a bet into essentially a bot, a Steam bot, and you can do it right up until the match starts on some sites, and then match ends, you get your winnings and you trade them. Now it's all right, well, you traded this item. You get the items back after you win, but you have to wait 7 days, and then you get your winnings 7 days later as well. So Valve has kind of tried to compete with all the gambling in that regard. In the US, skin gambling in general for CSGO is completely illegal. And then in Europe, it's still legal. It's just that 7-day trade ban is really affecting some people.
So like if you trade skins in the US, like you can potentially get your account banned.
If you gamble, yes. If you trade, no.
Okay. Okay. So the trading
But
part of it is not like the gambling part of it,
right,
but
exactly. Like I could trade you some skins right now and it'd be no problem. But it's the fact that you're trading with an outside vendor. Um,
okay.
and essentially, like I don't know how much it comes into a play, but there's kids under the age of 21 in America gambling, technically gambling. So that is illegal. But it was more or less to protect the overall community and vision of what CS:GO actually is.
Right. Yeah. But you said it's still legal in um it's still
In
legal in
Europe,
Europe. So
right?
like
So there are still some skin sites that I used to bet on that are actually up and running. They've kind of changed their terms a little bit. They might not focus strictly on CS:GO now, with other games coming out. So they might move towards like I don't know, like PUBG or something if PUBG has skins. So there's other games out there that they've actually moved towards that also help their gaming or gambling environment type thing.
okay. Well, that makes perfect sense, and I'm sure eventually it'll come back this way if this stays as lucrative as it seems it might. So we'll see how that goes. But also when it comes to this, like there's also other games that have had betting involved in it, and when you think about it, there's been betting in everything in every aspect of your life, at least in some way, shape, or form, whether it was for money or pride or whatever. Especially in gaming. I mean, I remember being a kid and my dad and all his friends coming over and playing like Sega hockey and like betting on who was going to win games and stuff like that. So, I mean, when it comes to it, could be I'm just better at you, so I bet I can beat you, all the way up to like to professional betting level, and I'm sure there's esport bookies out there that do it and then are a part of it. So when it comes to betting in general and especially in esports, I mean, I think eventually somebody's going to want a piece of that pie and is going to want the money that comes out of that, or at least a cut of that money. So they're going to have to put themselves into it and make themselves a part of it.
Right, exactly. And I think, to be honest with you, I feel like there's some developers that have wanted to get in on this esports gambling stuff because they know it's a very lucrative market. But I think a lot of the main developers you see don't necessarily want to do that because it'll hurt the integrity of the game. Maybe it's a segue, maybe it's just another completely different topic. I don't know, but pay to win has become a lot more prevalent in a lot of these new games these last few years. CS:GO, like I said, you buy cases, you buy keys, and you can open the case. You look at the sports games, even with EA Sports, FIFA, NHL, Madden, you can buy the fantasy packs now, and you're paying real money to get that. So, like, how much of that is a little bit of gambling. It's not really, but it's this pay to win aspect that I think some companies are finding a way around, and they're using it to their advantage. A lot of new games are really this pay to win type thing. If it's not even an actual pay to win, like you're paying for cosmetics in a game that they're not going to boost your stats or boost your abilities in any way, but it just makes your character look better. Like look at Fortnite. We spent, I mean, I personally probably spent $30 on it when I was playing, and then the rest was just grinding out the V-Bucks through the battle pass. But
Right.
when you look at it, there's kids constantly spending money on Fortnite to get the latest skins, the latest um, upgrades, like whatever, like for the ATVs or gun skins, whatever it is. Like they're constantly paying money towards that. Like that's something that I think a lot
Yeah,
of the
and I
games
mean,
nowadays are
when you
going
think about it
towards.
too, there's always new stuff, and I think a lot of these people have that problem where they're trying to, the players realize what's going on when it comes to this, and some of the games they're okay with. Like I see it in Fortnite. Um, Fortnite can be okay with it. It's a free game. You can kind of convince yourself that, like, oh, okay, yeah, like I can spend a couple dollars here and there to do it. But, other games where you play like Call of Duty and they're asking you to put up money, or even like Destiny, where they're telling you to, you put all this money into the game and you buy all the expansions and you do all this, that, and the other thing, and you buy the season passes and all that. And then they ask you, oh, yeah, and then, you can get these boxes and you get a chance of getting something that you want. You're not even guaranteed to get, that item that you want.
Right. Right. It's a very interesting take that companies have been exploring, and they're making a lot of money off of it. And it's, do I like it? Yes and no. I think it allows you to advance in some games a little bit easier. And I think, granted, yes, paying $60 for a PS4 game or an Xbox One game, like I think that like you really shouldn't have to put more into it. But if you're enjoying a game that much, you're supporting the developer rather than just, a game in general. Like you're actually supporting them, which that support means that they can put those resources, that monetary resource, back into the next game that they make, and it's just going to make it that much better.
Right. No, and I definitely see it. For me, I think there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Like, I think the microtransactions that have like loot crates and loot chests and all that, like loot boxes in itself is, in some way form like a form of gambling. It's the same as me going to the casino, putting money on like the number 12 and hoping that the roulette wheel hits it. Um,
Right.
I'm putting my money up, and there's no guaranteed result to what's going to happen when that after that wheel stops spinning. And that's what you're getting with this. So it's not like it's a microtransaction where like it's like, oh, okay, $4.99 you get this suit and a gun skin. You know, um, where you don't know what you're gonna get. It could be something new, could be something not. Like Apex, I was okay with it because you got them every few levels, and you open it up and you don't know what you're gonna get, and that's fine. That's all well and dandy. And then you go in the store and you can look on the store, and if there's something you wanted cosmetically that you really wanted, then of course you just go and buy it. So like on that sense, it's really good. And that's the same thing with Fortnite. Like if I really wanted a skin, I would just buy it and I would like it and it'd be fine. But if I didn't like it or I didn't want it, I didn't need to buy it. It didn't matter. I didn't have to put my money into whatever their in-game currency is, open up a loot box and hope that they're best. Like I have, like like in FIFA, like or in Madden when you're trying to do the ultimate teams. Like I get what they're trying to do with the trading card aspect of it, and that's fine. And it's not an aspect that I like in my game, so I don't play it, which is fine. So it doesn't really affect me in that sense. But in a game like I don't know, in Battlefront 2, like that was such a big problem because the microtransactions cost so much money. So to unlock all the content that was supposed to be included in this game, it took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours or hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So and it was loot box based. So it's not like you could be like, oh, well, I really wanted like Darth Maul, so let me just buy Darth Maul. Like you just had to keep opening boxes and hope, dear God, that Darth Maul came out of it, or you just be sitting there for hours on end, just hoping to dear God that the box finally dropped it. So, I mean, when it comes to things like that, like I think some of the companies are like losing their way in a sense of it, where there's a lot of super interesting, cool things that you can buy in these games, which I feel like should be super rare drops. Like I know I haven't played Destiny in a while, but on Destiny, I know a lot of people were complaining because I keep up with the community about how the exclusive like Sparrow, which is one of their forms of transportation in that game, that was designed to be based around the raid that just dropped, was in the store for their in-game currency. Like, why would that not be a part of the raid, like in the original Destiny, and how that works? So if it was involved in both, where it was like a super low drop rate, but you could get it, or you could just say, screw it, I'm going to pay the $5-6 and just buy it. Like, if that's how you want to go through the game and get stuff done by using your wallet, like, more power to you. Go ahead, just buy it, and if that's what you want to do, because we can't stop you, and it supports the company, post launch, which I completely understand because they need to keep this game's updated, and we play games for longer. So that part I understand, but I feel like there's a right and wrong way to do it, and I think it's going to be a while until they actually figure out what that right or wrong way is.
Right, and I know in previous episodes and in an upcoming town hall, we're talking about Fortnite and how some of us love it, some of us don't. Now, we used to play it a lot, and I used to,
Yeah.
hashtag free wins on PS4, your favorite saying. So we loved it. We didn't really spend that much money on it, and we would put hours into grinding it out. And don't get me wrong, Fortnite's a great game. There's a reason why it's still where it is. I think it just became too static too quickly. I think there's too much to it that really just it's the same thing every time, and it's really just a build off. And I can't speak for what is it, chapter 2. I don't really have an interest in playing it, but the thing about Fortnite is it was always the mechanics were pretty decent. It was always a fun game to play, and the way they do the battle pass that ended up getting other people to copy them. I think Fortnite has done it right so far compared to everybody. When you think about it, it's okay. Spend the V-Bucks, like pay an actual $10, get the V-Bucks, get the battle pass, go through the battle pass, unlock these cosmetics, unlock V-Bucks. You're making more V-Bucks if you can grind it out to level 100 than what you're spending in real money. So you're essentially making money playing Fortnite. It's just you're never going to ever get that $10 back. You're getting it back in-game currency, and then you're getting a whole bunch more back. I've only spent $10 on one battle pass, and I think I played 6 seasons up to level 100. So essentially, I got over $60 worth of content in that regard.
Right.
Something that I think might be interesting for Fortnite to look into is kind of a little bit, I don't know, just popped in my head, kind of a little bit like what CSGO does. At the end of a match, you have a chance of getting a drop. It can be a case, it can be a skin, it can be a spray, it can be of any rarity. Now, obviously, super rare ones barely drop, but something like that in Fortnite that if you, I don't know, maybe like in the top 5, finish top 5, finish top 10, whatever it is, you get a chance at rolling something as a reward, like a cosmetic. It could be as little as 5 V-Bucks. It can be, if you win, you obviously have a higher chance of getting something better, like to commend you on playing and winning and whatnot. Like maybe one of them's a new axe or something like that. And then build up this inventory of duplicate axes. And I know Fortnite really doesn't want to do that, but I feel like that would be something kind of cool where you can build up a duplicate inventory of 5 of these same axes and trade them up to a different kind of axe, the way CSGO does, or you trade them and sell them for V-Bucks and get like 2 V-Bucks per axe, and that also kind of helps save spending money in the game. So there's 10 V-Bucks right there. Something like that would be kind of cool, where there's putting a little bit of an economy in there and you can trade with people. I just think that's not what Fortnite's looking for, but something like that in a game that isn't CSGO, but a Fortnite-esque game would be very cool.
Right. No, I can definitely see that because it's definitely very. They did it very well when it came to it. Like, even the free part of it, like, you still got skins, you still got sprays, and all those things that you could get on the premium one, and you still felt like when you got to those levels that you were earning something. So whether you paid for it or not, and if you were willing to put out the $10 to get the premium battle pass, then of course you got the better things that were more worth it. But you had the choice and you had the option to, because nothing changed anything about how you played or what went on. So it really didn't matter one way or the other if you had the regular one or the big one. But if you really liked the theme of that season, or you really liked the goals of what you had, then at least it was an option and availability to give it to you. It would be really interesting to see that rolling, like, top 5, you got a chance at rolling it like uncommons, and then top 3 was a rare, and then top, you came in first place, you got that victory royale, you got a chance, you had a small chance at like a rare something or other and another thing, and you could collect them and upgrade the, if you got 5 skins that were like red, and you could upgrade those to like a rare red set that was like sparkly or something like that. I could definitely see something like that being implemented, if not in Fortnite, at least in some other game. So that would be very interesting to see too.
Right, and I think some of the listeners might be like, well, we were talking about sports betting and how we get into this, but I think it's all very relative as to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We started out with esports betting. We're saying, people are going to want to do it. Sports betting just became legal in the US or in a couple states, and it's quickly growing across the country. How does it get to esports? Well, esports is organizations, like I said earlier, are being bought out by these sports teams or being owned by the sports teams. Then we get into a completely free game like Fortnite or Apex Legends, completely free, and people wanting to pay for add-ons in these games. The fact that they want to pay for these add-ons means that there is a market for a game like this, and the fact that there is a market for this type of game means that it's probably going to get pushed into the esports scene. Being pushed into the esports scene, people are okay with spending money on this product or this game, that it's going to drive right into the esports betting aspect.
Nah, and exactly, and with these, these teams buying esports teams or creating esports teams, they're pushing them out into popularity. They didn't buy these people just to let them sit and not do anything. So they're really going to start pushing the popularity of them and enough people. And I know they have like a cult following with a lot of the stuff they have now, and a lot of the teams and the people, and and all that and that aspect of it. But it's going to really start to push out, because it's going to have to. Like, these people want to make sure that these investments and all this money that they're putting into these teams and these games and these companies, it's going to be worth their investment. So, it's going to happen where these esports teams get more popular and become more quote unquote household names. I mean, granted, at least not in the very near future, it's going to be as household as like a lot of these professional sports teams that we have, but it's going to be popular enough where, being, you're going to go into like FanDuel, and they're going to be like, in the League of Legends tournament, you can pick, somebody here versus this other team, and you can pick who's going to win that based on like a money line and things like that. It's going to happen. And like you said, especially with a lot of states bringing the legality of sports betting in, starting with New Jersey, and then, it's working slowly across the whole country. It's going to happen. Like, people obviously like betting. They obviously wanted this because it's a super fast growing opportunity and a super fast growing financially industry. So it's going to be something that it's going to be unavoidable. I feel like at this point, like, you can't close that box. It's already out of the box. You can't put it back in, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I don't know when it's going to happen, and I don't know when the first like official sports book is going to host, host this betting for it. Might have even happened already. So, we definitely have to take a look into that. And when we do our update to sports betting episode, we'll definitely, see where they talk money lines or popular bets when it comes to this. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I feel like it just can't not happen. I feel like people want that money, and I think eventually it might even be certain companies hosting these tournaments that place the bets. Like, you're no longer going to have these developers that just develop games. They're going to be companies that develop esports tournaments and leagues that host the betting, and then they get a cut of that profit, and maybe some of that profit goes back to the games that they're hosting for.
Right, and I think part of what we should also take into consideration are with these large tournament organizers. Dota 2 just comes to mind now. I have no interest in Dota 2. I've never played it. But isn't there a tournament each year that's worth 10 million when a team wins? Something like that?
Yeah, it's like big, there's like big money in it.
Right. So the fact that these tournaments are putting in all this money towards a video game, 10 million is like one salary for an NFL player for like a year or two even, depending on the player. So like that's kind of ridiculous to think about that there is such a following to one game to put $10 million as a cash prize for winning a tournament. Like that's insane that it's kind of showing that there's such a large following of viewership coming in that they're willing to spend this money, and it can only go up when I'm not even gonna say if, it's just when esports betting comes out, because it's bound to happen. To be honest with you, there's probably esports betting all over Europe that we're talking about right now, not
Yeah.
just like skins and whatnot, like actually betting on esports teams, because they do take it serious over there compared to here. I mean, we take it serious here, but not as much as them over there. But like it's gonna happen here eventually.
Yeah, and when it comes to that too, it's been a just a huge part of their of their culture and everything. Like it wasn't something that has been shamed on for a very long time. Because I remember even you know before graduating high school and all that, when I was watching soccer and competitive like soccer, like Chelsea versus Man U and stuff. Like you look on the sidelines and there's like booking companies right there on the sidelines. It's like place your bets here at 247bets.com and stuff like that. So being that it happened so fast in Europe makes sense, just because I feel like betting on sports makes sense to them because it's been a part of that culture for so long. And I think here it was considered like a vice. Like you had to have a bookie and you had to know a guy, or you had to know a guy that knew a guy to place the bets, and you had to make your money, and everything was like on the low. When they were like, hey, you come here, you place your bets, you send them back out, we're good.
Right. So I don't want to give a timeline, but I feel like given maybe 3 to 5 years time, depending, it also depends on the current mood of the games that are out. Obviously, like battle royales was the hot topic for the last 2 years, and to be honest with you, I think it's dying. It's slowly dying, but it's dying. So being able to come out with another game like that, the fact that you have a game like Call of Duty that was its prime a couple years ago, yeah, probably, but it's still relevant and still an esport. Like that's ridiculous that a game can be developed all these years by the same developers and have pretty much the same concept. Every Call of Duty is, oh, here's a bad guy, shoot him. Oh, but he got away, and then oh look, you end up killing him in the end, right? So like being able to do stuff like that that have just about the same story, just different characters and a different plot in a certain way, like to have that still be an esport because of this multiplayer aspect is honestly, it's kind of mind blowing in a certain sense.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely mind blowing, and I would love to see like when this becomes a little bit more mainstream, like how much money goes just on esports betting. And then, I think the final topic we wanted to talk about is I guess talking about how there's been like scandals and stuff when it comes to esports, with teams cheating, and like you were talking about, like uh setting up lobbies where you place your bet on who's going to win, and it was staged. And you know the threat of that when it comes to esports and betting, and even sports betting in general. I mean, I'm sure you could think of a couple times where that happened.
Right. So the biggest, actually, there was two. One before I started watching CS:GO, and the one right when I started. The biggest one though is I Buy Power. I want to say 5 years, within 5 years, maybe 6 years ago. Up and coming team, and 3 out of the 5 players at least got VAC banned, which means that they're permanently banned from playing on any competitive kind of server
That's
and
crazy.
in any competitive tournaments because they were the ones found guilty of match fixing. Um, and it was right before this organization got signed, ironically, to my favorite team, Evil Geniuses. Um, they were about to sign I Buy Power team because this team was such on the up and coming, and the next big North American team. This match scandal hit, and with the people getting banned, they were like, "Oh no, we're out," and they just lost their contract and a pay raise and all this stuff. The other one I know of was for Epsilon in CS:GO. Wasn't as bad. Now I think the people were still back banned, but it wasn't as bad. But the fact that it killed an esports organization both times. iBuyPower left CS:GO. I don't even think they have like esports teams anymore, to be honest. I know they have fun jerseys, but they don't really have an esports team. And Epsilon ended up taking a quick break from CS:GO, but then now they're back. But they kind of took a stance where it's like, all right, we're going to reconsider everything because it was such a new thing with esports betting back then that it was like, all right, well, is this what we really want to do? Do we want to risk this? Like, this is going to hurt our organization, and we can't really afford to have a bad image right here.
You're right. Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense, especially at that point. Like these companies, don't want to be associated with something that happened like that, and it completely makes sense. And the fact is, even in the game, the quote unquote true sports like basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and all that. It's swept under the rug a little bit more, but there's always little like rumblings of, oh, do you think there was point shaving there? Do you think like this, that, and the other thing? And although they'd say like you can't bet on these things, and as a player you can't do these, or as a coach you can't do these, like the chances of them not doing it is pretty unrealistic. To think that every single one of those people with all that money isn't going to make a bet or anything like that. But dude, the Black Sox scandal, of teams of players throwing games. There's countless things, point shaving, and when you just look back at it, there's always those games where you're like, something didn't seem right there. And I know when I was getting my master's degree, we actually had some former NBA executive that came and talked to us, and she even talked about how in the rule book for the NBA, and I think she said it, including all other major sporting, leagues, that there's no rule that says that the league itself can't fix games or can't control the outcome of games. They're there to provide entertainment for the fans, to the true velocity of the sport. And it's like that was pretty eye-opening to me to think about it there, where it's like the league's not saying that they can't fix something or make something happen or make something seem like it shouldn't have happened when it did, but the rules indicate that people outside sources can't do that thing. So whether or not it's happened from these leagues, any of the leagues or not, it's pretty interesting thing to consider, where you're like, it makes sense that, blank team won this or blank team did that. And I know there was a few years ago, there was, trade talks about a team that was owned by the NBA and another team, and the NBA blocked the trade from happening so that the player, quote unquote, would go to this other team or stay. And that could be considered, against fair practice, but I don't remember what came out of that, but I know he didn't go. And I remember people talking about how like, it seems a little shifty. So
Right. And just to shed my opinion on that, I don't, like you said, I don't know what the outcome was, but
right.
I'm also okay with them doing that. I guess I'm gonna look at it the business standpoint and also as an entertainment standpoint. Like, would it be awesome to see the top players play on the same team together? Yes. I'm gonna throw the Patriots in here. How
Yeah,
many
that's fine.
Super Bowls have they won? Too
Too
many,
many.
right? So it's now it's like every NFL season. It's like, oh, this team's good. This team's gonna be good. But then it's like, well, the Patriots are in the Super Bowl. Not even gonna watch. I think that's why viewership for all that kind of stuff is on the decline a little bit, because it's the same team constantly winning. Does that mean Brady and Belichick aren't geniuses and that they're just lucky? No, they're geniuses. Do they cheat? Who knows? I don't really care about that. But it's like, look at the Golden State Warriors. They had their dynasty. They had some of the best players on that team, and it just got boring because it was like, oh, well, they're gonna win. They're gonna win. They're gonna win. So I'm okay with them blocking trades like that or doing stuff like that in regards to keep people watching and staying in on the sport. But I also let the players play with who they want to play, right? Let them play who they want to play with. At the same time, I think you look at it, and I'm just going to turn it to the NHL now. Um, Toronto is one of the biggest, largest markets that the NHL really focuses on. And then you have someone like the Arizona Coyotes that I think if you can get some bigger names to the Arizona Coyotes type of a thing, that market will start to really grow and allow for more money to come back. Like look at baseball. The Yankees, right? How much money do they have in the organization? How many players are they overpaying? Probably majority of their roster. But then you look at the Miami Marlins and baseball doesn't have a salary cap, but they have a luxury tax. So the fact that the Marlins might not have the monetary assets to pay for some of these bigger name players hurts them. So I think allowing blocking some trades to an extent to have these players go elsewhere to try and generate more revenue for that team, for that league. I think that's kind of a smart business idea. I just don't know if they've been going about it the right way. And in today's society, like any little thing is people are sensitive about, and they're like, "Oh, it's wrong," or "You suck," "You do this and that." But like realistically, the world is a business, and they're doing business moves.
Right. And that's going to be that way the entire time. Now, I think when it comes to hockey or basketball, it's a little easier for the organizations to control their games just because there's so many less people involved. Like it's really hard to have 22 people on the same wavelength when it comes to that. Granted, you can always bribe one person to do something, but there's 10 other people on the field. So when it comes to that, that's a little different. But when there's only five people, five people total on one team or 10 on the total rink or the ice or the arena, it's a little bit simpler. But then again, think of it this way: a lot of people say that, well, one, FIFA got caught up in that cheating scandal, so soccer has always been plagued with that quote unquote shadiness of them controlling stuff. But if you think about it, like, you were a big soccer guy for a while and you grew up in the sport. I was a greenhorn and I had to learn a lot about it to understand it. The refs control the flow of the game. It's not the players. The refs can call penalties when they see them. They can let them go. They can give advantages. They can add time. They can take time away. They can, there's a lot of things that a ref can do in a soccer match that can really change the flow of a game. So when it comes to that aspect of it, and now that I'm thinking about referees, like there was in basketball, there was a lot of that problem talking about the referees and how they could change the flow of a game. So, but that goes beyond my point. What I wanted to say was, gambling on soccer is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and people still do it with these scare tactics and with these warnings of it could be fixed and it might be fixed. Um, you know, we'll see what happens, but I think eventually it's going to grow to the point where people are just going to get past that stigma and bet on it as these teams and video games and esports becomes more of a household thing rather than what the that feeling that it's gamers, it's just guys in their basement and dumb kids. Once it breaks beyond that, it's going to be extremely lucrative if it's done correctly.
Right. Like winning $3 million for a Fortnite tournament. Um, Players buyouts, at least in CS:GO, from what I know, there's six figures to buy out a player, and I guess having a little bit on the back trail there of an all-star team. That's what FaZe Clan's been trying to do for CS:GO for so long. Create this international superstar team, and where's it gotten them? It hasn't really gotten them that much success. They haven't won a major. They had their streak of being one of the top teams, but now they're severely struggling. So like again, getting back to a little bit on that is all-star players together won't always mesh together. But the fact that they're paying six figures to buy out a player out of a contract from an organization and then re-sign them to a new contract is ridiculous. And where does that money come from? It comes from the marketing of the esport, the growth of the esport, the amount of players playing this esport, stuff like that. That having this betting aspect to it is only gonna it's not gonna benefit the organizations in a way of, "Oh my god, they just bet $100 on us, like, we're gonna get a cut of this." No, but it's more or less this viewership's gonna be there, and with the viewership being there, that means that there's gonna be a lot more fans going to each organization, which is gonna bring them revenue for buying fan gear and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's going to be money, and I think these companies want to find ways to make money and use this money, and players want more choices to what they can do with their money and not feel so gouged. And I think this eventually, if the setup is correct, can really help some teams and players and everything like that. Get paid. The amount of money that can help this continue growing as an industry, as well as game industries. You already see it; they're already starting to focus on creating games that are going to be built for competition and tournaments and everything like that. So this can only help that. And bad games won't last long on a grand scale when it comes to tournaments and when it comes to big money things like that. So these developers really have to start making high quality games, and that's just going to benefit everybody at the end of the day.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see when this esports scene comes out, or the betting esports scene comes out, and to what games are going to benefit the most. I think you'll have League of Legends. I think you'll have Dota 2. You'll probably have Siege. Siege has become really large, or maybe a Siege sequel. You will have CS:GO because that's been established. Um, and I think you might see some of the sports games having it, but otherwise, like I don't know, like Call of Duty maybe, but some of these esports that are like some of the games in esports that are large, it's not necessarily like a football where it's like, all right, well, we know the Dolphins are terrible, we know the Patriots are a dynasty. Like it's a video game, so the momentum can change at any second, whereas in other sports it might not change as quickly. So it's also another interesting take on if at least in CS:GO, they can play a best of 1, which is just 1 map, or they can play a best of 3 or a best of 5, which is 3 or 5 maps. And usually the top team, the better team will come out on top in a best of 3, but in a best of 1, it's a complete toss up, and it's how how encouraging is it to players to esports bettors to actually bet on these types of games? Like FIFA can go in any which way. And I think the other aspect of it is like I know there's weather in real sports, like it could be raining or snowing and players play better in the rain, play better in the heat, whatever it is. But with esports, a lot of it comes down to the LAN aspect of it and how stable is the LAN aspect. How how stable are these players' minds because they do get these psychologists in to mentally prepare them. How well is this tournament ran instead of just like, oh yeah, we have a game at 1 o'clock or we have a game at 4:25. It's are these tournament organizers able to keep up to the task and stay on schedule as much as possible instead of having a 5-hour delay because equipment's not working? Then they have to
Right.
like catch up and all that stuff, and now you're up until 2 a.m. playing a game. So I think there's a lot of outside factors involved with esports gambling when you actually think about it. But the need is there. It's just a matter of when is it actually going to hit, um, and what games will it hit.
Oh yeah. No, I 100% think so too. And finding those games, and some of these games are going to be built with that in mind, and then they fizzle out. So it's always interesting to see what games just really latch on to the esport and competitive gaming world, while others who try to do it just don't. Um, and it's going to be very interesting, and we're definitely going to try to keep everybody posted on everything that's happening and all the research that we do and all that. So definitely stick around with industry update for that information. And and I know we have some industry people. I know we've been talking about it on our other podcast too, where we have some industry related people that are going to be a part of our show and give us that industry insight and update into what's going on in esports.
Right? Yeah, I have a friend who started a varsity esports team at his college. And he's actually looking to become an esports agent, so that'll also be a nice take to see. I know one episode we were planning is, hey, what did you do to get this esports collegiate program, and what does it take to be a part of it? And then he's like, oh, I'm going to try and start my own esports agency now. So that'll be another interesting take on his end to see how that goes. And then I have a friend who is actually a professional gamer now, and I thought about it the other day. I do have a friend who went to school to be a video game developer, so I think that would also be kind of a cool thing to try and get an insight as to how are games made and are they made with an intention of becoming an esports game? Are they made with an intention of just putting out the best story and giving people life for a few weeks and whatnot?
Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of people I feel like out there that always wanted to start like an esports team or start, a varsity team at their school and just never knew how to do it. And I think getting that information out there will really help some people, which would be fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. So stay tuned for those. They should be coming out very shortly. They'll be very interesting. Honestly, they'll probably be like an hour-long podcast. So I know this one's running probably a little bit longer than what we did last time. But like we said in the first episode, is the industry update name might not stay. We don't know necessarily where these podcast episodes are going to lead us
Right.
to topic-wise or how long they're going to be. But we do appreciate you guys hanging around and listening.
Yeah, definitely 100% appreciate that. And though the name of this podcast may change, the topic of this podcast will always stay the same, where we keep the industry in mind and esports when it comes to more of a business rather than us talking about games or the random stuff we talk about on our town halls. So
Right,
so
exactly.
stay tuned, stick around. Kyle, this is where I give it to you to fill everybody in on our social media stuff.
All right, so we're on YouTube. Our YouTube is Gaming Grounds Network. Go ahead and we put up all of our podcast episodes the day they get released on podcast networks. They are released on YouTube as well, so leave some comments and feedback, something you might want to hear. We are on Facebook. We have a page. We're going to work on a group so that way we can have a community. That's at Gaming Grounds Network. Twitter is at Gaming Grounds N. Morgz, what's your Twitter?
Morgz GGN.
And I'm Guzzy GGN. Hashtag Town Hall Tuesday. So every Tuesday, get ready for Town Halls. And then I do have the Hitbox series with Derp. That's every other Thursday.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, then I know we were talking about for our YouTube page, we have some possible things that we're going to come up there, very interesting and just fun to watch. So be on the lookout for that as well. And rumor has it, Morgz myself might be coming up with another show. Just I'm doing my research now before that actually pops out. So be on the lookout. And I think from everybody here, so me and Guz, as well as everybody at the Gaming Ground Podcast Network, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Deuces.